So before we get started, I just want to say don't worry too much about the runtime. The normal Red Orb Menace clips of this episode will be at the usual 20 to 25 minutes. The rest of it is going to be build design and theory for Londor Pilgrim, who is the invader we'll be seeing this video. And he'll be invading in the Cathedral of the Deep. And Londor Pilgrim is another example of a lore-based invader character that I made, one of my oldest ones. Now, Londor. Let's talk about Londor a little bit. So we have the three sisters of the Sable Church, of which we see two during the events of the game. Yoria, who we directly interact with, is bound to Yoel of Londor, and the other pilgrim, I think, that doesn't have a name, that gives you Chameleon, as well as her assassin, the Londor Paleshade, who you may have as an ally or a antagonist, depending on your quest choices. And Londor is sort of a rogue nation, I guess you could say. Sister Elfrida, the eldest sister of the Sable Church, attempts to light the first flame and fails. Now she's Londor's greatest champion, and when she is resurrected with all the other enkindled, she chooses exile in the painted world of Ariandel with her trusted knight Wilhelm. So it's up to Yuria and the third sister, and my character's mistress, Lilian, to usurp the first flame with a new champion. Now Yuria's agents are well known in the game path and the game quest. Lilian, however, is a little bit more dubious and ambiguous, so I use that as a vessel for my character's own headcanon. My character sneaks into Lothric, along with all the other Londor pilgrims, and facilitates misdirection and deception to aid Yuria's quest to find the proper usurper. So my character is basically a cleaner. I'm going in there, routing all the riffraff and unworthy hosts and unkindled ones that might get in Yuria's candidate's way. Now I had about a dozen or so clips of lone host invasions in preparation for this video, and almost all of them were lone fallen knights with the grassroot shield and the dark sword or the shield of want, and I can't do it, I'm sorry. I've been invading in here in the Cathedral of the Deep as this character for about 2 years now, and I've killed more fallen knights than I care to talk about. So I'm gonna try to mitigate this video with as few fallen knights as possible, so apologies when they pop up. Couldn't be helped, there's just some things you can't avoid. But I wanted to show a couple of minor invasions here against a couple of lone hosts, just to kind of show that I do get lone hosts, it does happen. Cathedral of the Deep in particular is a very, very large area, and it's also very winding. And my character, who's got sort of a scientific approach to the invasions, is a stealth-based character. I use a Slumbering Dragon Crest Ring. I have an Untrue Dark Ring as per my lore. And again, this area is so large, having that ring is a real asset. I always want to be in a situation where I get to control First Blood and how it's delivered. I have acquired a Obscuring Ring, even though I am not a Finger of Rosaria. My character has a little bit of a headcanon with Rebirth. I've rebirthed this character perhaps 6 or 7 times using the PS4 glitch, which I won't tell you how to do, but it's pretty easy. But basically you can rebirth as many times as you like. I'm currently rocking a raw build here. I've had different ones in the past. I've had Dex base, Dark Infusion base with the Onyx Blade originally when I first had this character, and if you watch some of my early videos you'll notice I used a lot of katanas with Londor Pilgrim and a lot of my PvP montages, and I've changed his fashion here and there throughout the years. But here's a lone host I quite like. This is Frollo, and Frollo, yes, was waiting at the bonfire, unwilling to play the level, but he was alone, so I don't give him too much grief. He probably just got here, honestly, based on the livelihood of the hollows outside. And it looks like he's got sort of a, I guess, what you would expect a new character to wear with some sense of fashion, because he looks pretty good. I like the Marat set with the Faith, and He comes at me with a straight sword and I think it's a Chimer Talisman. and I could tell he doesn't have a whole lot in the way of other weapons, but he does have the spell. He's unable to land one on me. But we have a pretty good spar here against lone hosts. I won't go too hard usually, and you'll see here my main weapon, of course, is a raw flamberge as per my raw build, and the flamberge just works well with a variety of different builds, raw especially. Now I also have a deep rapier, which you're seeing me break out, and I did a couple of parry flexes there that I missed. But I want you to watch this weapon art. This is a pretty nice weapon art. I don't think a lot of people use it, but you can redirect it mid-weapon art, which I did right there once Frollo rolled out of my attack path. And I was able to clip him. And he does get a backstab on me here. I think that was accidental. I think we were just touring each other in close proximity, and he just happened to be at the 2-point backstab proximity. Because he doesn't try to go for any other fish situation. He does break out his weapon art, and like any player that gets lucky with one hit, they'll do it again and again. I give him what for with my own flamberge weapon art, which does quite a lot of damage. And he rolls away to heal, but I have knives, so I throw my knives. So, good game, Frollo. Now, I wanted to try to sift through as many as I could to find more of the unusual invasions, since I get so many similar ones over and over and over in this area. So, take for instance this guy, what's his name? Imanaltz? I don't know how to say his name. I don't know if it's a reference to some character name, I don't know. But Imanaltz and his ally Phantom, whose name I never get, are using branches to hide in the big flooded area of the level. And curious to see how long I could outwit them in this game of hide-and-go-seek, I sneak through the sludge here, because they can't see me at this distance with my obscuring ring. And I attempt a little bit of a social experiment to see just how long these guys will hide. Now there's 2 of them, and normally if I run into players who are unwilling to play against me in Cathedral, I'll usually see a disconnection or a other form of stalemate. So this is what I call a passive stalemate. I've had way worse examples. You will see some of these examples in an upcoming video, because while compiling footage, I acquired quite a lot of it, but that's for another day. Anyway, I wait in the muck here for quite a while, way too long, and it becomes evident these guys are simply going to play possum until I get bored and leave. But I'm a different kind of invader with Londor Pilgrim. I'm not necessarily too interested in claiming a tongue at this point. I'm more interested to see what these riffraff of Lothrop will do under the circumstances of my invasion. And when I sneak over here, I noticed Imanaltz. I don't know how to say his name. He's AFK, so they go to town. Interestingly enough, the Phantom, who is chameleoned right across the way over there, never wakes up to help his friend until literally the end. So maybe these guys were having a conversation, or someone was taking a pee, I don't know. Anyway, I interrupt the normal broadcast to show a blue invasion. I got a lot of these in Cathedral as well. It's just one of those areas that's so large. I just get so many blue sentinel fights in this area. And like a lot of blue sentinels, Help Me Twink is going to open with a parry attempt with the Cestus, and he'll do it another couple of times, I think, before our duel is over. But I fought a lot of blues. I have a lot of double tongues. I've done a lot of work. And a lot of the stalemate stuff that I was talking about goes hand in hand with blue summons. Blues get a lot of activity in the Cathedral of the Deep because hosts are maybe unwilling to go through the gauntlet with an invasion in their midst. So that happens a lot. This guy was a little bit better than some of the other blues I fought during this recording session. I think I had about 50 invasions total, and I might have killed maybe 12 or 13 blue sentinels or dark moons during the course, but most of it was pretty unremarkable. I like this character because he did try a couple of different weapons, and we went at it pretty well. I'm kind of disrespecting his spear a little bit too much, and I get myself in a situation in a little bit where I'm not healing. I don't want to commit more than 2 Estus if I can help it against the blue sentinel. And he almost puts me to bed with those pokes. But my great sword has better iframes than his spear, and I'm tanking a lot of the hits. And right there I finish it with a running R1. But that was a good fight. I like that blue. A little bit parry happy, but aren't we all? Now Cetus, or Cetus, I don't know. Now our main man Cetus has activated his elevator shortcut, but not before I've managed to catch up to him prior to engaging the giant. Now Cathedral of the Deep has 2 giants, and they are invaluable if you're an invader. Every host, every questing party has to contend with one of these guys in some fashion. And this first giant, usually I'll see the host beeline it across the walkway with his phantoms, and maybe they'll hop down and fight it by the ankles in the muck, or they'll go through the level and fight it on the ground level, doing the same method. The giant can hurt you, so if you're going to attempt an ambush like I did, be very careful, because you could very easily get cadavered yourself with an attempted sneak attack. But as you can see, they do real damage, and do not sleep on these guys. If there's a mage in tow, make that your first priority. Mages will take these guys out rather quickly. The giants are allergic to magic, so make sure you get the most out of them while they're alive. Now Flame Bear is the host in this next clip. I invaded him a few times, or rather I invaded his host a few times while he himself was a random summon. So it was nice to see him again for this clip. He's got 2 phantoms with him while I meet the party on the ramparts. And with the obscuring ring, I'm able to get some crossbow action in. And the great bow is probably the preferred weapon for these segments here, but because of my respec into a raw build, I'm unable to wield my Oni Slayer or Millwood. So the crossbow is making a good alternative in place of a great bow, especially with the explosive bolts that I'm using. Now they can jump up to this rampart here and meet me at my perch, but I've noticed not a lot of players know they can make that jump, since it is a bit of a leap of faith, and even players that know about it will seldom risk it unless they know they can do it, since there's a chance you can mess up and fall to your death. I've done it myself during invasions, quite embarrassingly, so I know that sometimes it just doesn't quite happen the way you want. But from where I am, and these guys are probably looking for me, I realize, watching the clip now, I can make the most of the explosive bolts and just harass them during the entire gauntlet through that area. I allow them to get ahead of me, and I meet up with this phantom, Ico, or Ico? Well, whatever their name is, they get me what for, the whammer pretty good, but not before I managed to take them out of the equation. And once again, I've gotten ahead of the party. Now this is sort of a go-to guide for how I normally handle Cathedral of the Deep. I make skirmishes here and there, hit and run ambushes before retreating. That's normally how I like to do it. This particular area, what I'm doing right now on screen, kicking all the pews, I always want to make sure those guys are up and about, since a few of them, including one of those big Cathedral Knights, will be passive unless they've been engaged by the player. And smart players might not even bother them to begin with, so you want to make sure you get them all in a waking state before the player gets up here. Now, the muck they're walking in is as effective as the water for the electric bolts, and I'm still using the explosive bolts for the host to kind of nudge him into action. But you can see here that a blue sentinel has come in, bringing my adversaries back up to 3. But with the splash damage on these bolts, all I have to do is really hit the muck in proximity of where they are, and the splash damage will usually do the job. And again, I'm not trying to cause significant damage here, I'm just trying to pester them with little damage. And if you've watched any 5 Saint Rai videos, you know that's always a masterful tactic. Cause as much damage and annoyance as you can, because that will add up over time. Now Flame Bear, I think just for all his merits that I've witnessed, just doesn't know all the little ambush spots. So I'm able to trap him there with the rapier and put this invasion in the logbook. But and the blue's mad about it. But that was a textbook invasion as Londor Pilgrim. So this next part was awesome. I invaded this host named Hollow King. What was actually happening was I had crashed a stream where this host, Hollow King, was rocking a Dried Finger challenge run where the theme was Hollow. So he's Hollow, all his compatriots who were watching and joining via password summon are Hollow, and even his invaders were Hollow themed. So this is pretty cool for Londor Pilgrim. This was something I almost never get to see this low level. And this was pretty cool. Now of course when you're fighting against people rocking roleplay builds, you'll notice that the min-max divide is usually a little bit steeper, and you're never going to be as strong as you would with an optimized build, but it's more fun. So that trumps all, in my opinion. And of course, with two players dying at the same time, the lag spike is pretty severe, and Hollow King is T-modeling pretty hard. In this situation, during a lag spike, my inclination is always attack constantly, be aggressive, keep swinging, and hope that whatever happens when everything resets itself, that might come out smelling like roses. And that's a good rule of thumb. Obviously, sometimes it'll go south against you, but yeah, in that situation, always swing away, go into the spike, be aggressive, don't stop attacking, blow your stand bar, do everything. I sneak ahead, or rather I sneak behind him in a follow-up invasion. This is again Hollow King and his faithful stream, but I bit off more than I could chew in this one, and I've got 4 players on me, which is never a good sign. So I quickly see myself out of this situation. And I think the similar looking Londorian sets and some of the other Phantoms, with their use of the Untrue Dark Ring as well, kind of helps my blend a little bit. Probably confusing to this other invader. I probably should have taken off my Untrue Dark Ring for this, but it seems as if everyone involved is pretty knowledgeable. The other invader is rocking a Lucatiel roleplay from Dark Souls 2, although he's doing a sort of narcoleptic take on Lucatiel, which you'll see in the repeated use of the collapse gesture. Ah, that was a pretty nasty blunder right there. And right now, I'm just concentrating on not tagging my ally. And let me tell you, urns, lightning urns, doesn't matter what level you are, doesn't matter what your stats, they're good, use them. Now, we go at it, 2v4, now 2v3, or 3v2, soon to be 2v2, once I take out Mindless Henri over here, which is, I guess, a Londor-esque version of Henri. I'm not quite sure what that player's canon was with that, but again, these are cool players doing cool builds. So this is just really fun. Now I trust Lucatiel to handle the other Phantom there, Queen of Hollows, and I go for Hollow King, who is using a remarkably underused spell, which I almost never see. And even though I know he can't parry with that thing, I'm sort of flexing a little bit with my rapier parries, and he's pulling back just enough to make me eat a face of axe every time I go for it. So I sort of get just punishment right there. And we have a little bit of a better spar than we did previously during the lag spike. And I could tell he's doing some sort of challenge run because he's got the deep axe that he presumably got from the first Mimic chest in High Wall of Lothric. And I forgive his Fallen Knight attire just because all the other pieces fit and all the other checkboxes are tallied, and I generally approve. It doesn't always happen that way where I can say I can approve of a Fallen Knight armor piece in any respect, but I do like this. And you saw me using the rapier a little bit there, in an attempt to avoid that, which is the wide sliding friendly fire I'm apt to do when wielding a flame barrage. But at this point, I don't want him running into the levels, so I think Lucatiel will forgive me for it. Although, it's hard to really tell. What an interesting roleplay there is Lucatiel. I really don't know what was going on. But anyway, I like this group so much, I ended up putting my sign down and joined the stream as an ally. I felt like it was my civic duty to assist other Hollows in their endeavors in Lothric. So I made a little bit of a spontaneous roleplay here, helping my fellow compatriots. The other Phantom here is Mindless Sin, and she is rocking a Hara Legion sword, or a giant curved sword from the DLC. I'm not going to put this invader's name into the text because it's a series of letters and numbers, and I can't read it. I'm sorry. The font's just too bad on all the recordings I've looked. If you want your name recorded, pick something sensible. Anyway, this is a great showcase for just how daunting this graveyard can be for a questing party. It's very tight, very narrow. This whole level is just got all kinds of depth to it. But this particular spot is particularly nasty. And this invader, while he's not doing a whole lot of damage, he's making the most of these turn and burns at our disadvantaged state. I'm unable to pull the spacing as much as I like. I'm clanking on gates. I'm running into reanimated corpses that are causing me precious floor space. So I actually break out the Morningstar just to use the pocket poise afforded by it. And you can see there the Reanimator's collision box prevents me from chasing him out, as I normally would be able to do if I was invading myself. But I do believe he's sensible enough to know what I'm trying to do with the pocket poise. And he backs off a little bit. I can already tell what's going to happen next. We have a Grave Warden up ahead, and I'm hoping to catch him before that enemy is aggroed to our presence, but I'm not going to be successful on that one. And my follow-up is to hopefully pull a critical state on the Grave Warden, which I'm also unable to succeed with. I end up getting knocked over the balcony in just a second, which prompts the invader to finish me off with a plunge. However, I have an invincibility state on the pickup, and I pull a Hail Mary parry, predictably knowing he's going for the rest of my health bar, because I'm in a pretty sorry state. And that Hail Mary parry saved me. So that was a pretty cool fight against that invader. He was using the level very well, despite his optimization limitations on those axes. But that's pretty much how you want to handle the graveyard, the way he was doing it. It was very, very smart. A little bit later, Free Hugs is invaded, looking for the host, who's still King of Hollows, or Hollow King. And we must have missed each other by mere seconds here. And again, I missed my second plunge because of the invulnerability frames from the stand-up. And in just a second, I'm about to lose a frame here of the clip. This is a weird PlayStation thing that happens. Fortunately for Free Hugs, he re-invades somewhat later, since I stay in this game world for quite a while, and he does revenge himself upon me. But overall, this was really neat. My thanks to Hollow King for hosting the stream. This was a cool little experience, and nice addition to the video. So, good game, everybody. This is the part where we detail the build. Now, as I said in the beginning of the video, Londor Pilgrim is a low-fat, raw build for level 40. And whenever you do a raw build, you typically want to just pool as much into Vigor as you can and keep the parameters free for weapons. I have a 15-16 split for Strength and Dexterity just to hit the minimum for all the gear I would like to use as him. And the Vitality, of course, is a little bit higher than I would have liked for this level, but I needed it. I needed every last point, so oh, thanks for the message rating. And Endurance, of course, is 25. If this was a little bit more optimized for just longevity, I'd probably wear a little bit of a lighter setup with maybe more points in Vigor, but Doesn't really matter. This works. This totally is viable for level 40, so long as you use the applicated items well, and I feel like I use them pretty well with Londor Pilgrim in this current raw state. As I said earlier in the video, I usually respec often here, every few months or so, with Rosaria, who is asleep right now. I guess never bothered to vindicate her soul from Leonard in this playthrough. Anyway, she'll still interact with you though, if you needed to, even if you don't have that soul handy. Doesn't really matter. Anyway though, for the most part, the stats are similar depending on whatever my spread's going to be. This happens to be the raw setup for Londor Pilgrim. My sharp infusion for my dex version of this character, which was the one I used for the longest period, from I think 2017 till whatever it was, and that one was 27 vigor with 28 dexterity, if you can imagine me doing that. I think to get that one to work, I think I had to two-hand the flame burge at all times. But anyway, moving on. So equip screen, here we go. So I have a dark dagger here. There should be a deep dagger, but I haven't farmed enough of the gems for the deep infusions. So my recommendation at level 40, if you're doing a dagger critical setup, if you don't want to use chaos for a faith build, fire and deep infusions work probably better, since technically speaking at this level or lower, I doubt you'll have really a strong stat to make the most of a crystal, chaos, or lightning infusion. So consider deep and fire. I don't have a extra deep gem, so I'm using the dark. It's a little bit weaker, but it does the job. And my deep rapier, which is properly infused. Although I will sometimes swap the rapier with the simple parrying dagger, just for the FP regeneration. I do have the deep Morning Star at +4, which I don't believe I got to really use at all in this video, simply because it's very situational. I needed a weapon with pocket poise. Pocket poise. I needed something, because I was running into situations where just the poise limitations on this character, and they exist because my armor isn't the heaviest, and the great sword, as good as it is, will falter against some of the strike weapon options that I come across. So that's what this was for. And as a raw build, you know, infusing it with deep seems like a good idea, just for the damage, but I don't want anyone to think that the damage is really that hefty with this character. I don't think that a raw setup really allows you to do a whole lot of whooping damage. You'll do a lot, but little details like me not getting the AR bonus for two-handing the flame burge, for instance, you know, is kind of an important detail. Although you still get that sweet weapon art damage frame that this weapon has, because it's got some kind of weird glitch apparently where the R2 weapon art will do a little bit more damage than probably it should, and I think that translates well to the raw versions also. I do use the resins for when need be. That's pretty much what works for the raw infusions. So let's see, other weapons I've got. There's a longsword here. I didn't use it, but I do have it in case I need it. If I get frustrated enough, I will have a longsword. I also have a raw follower saber, which is raw simply just for the fact that I needed something else that I could use resins on. And I also have the raw crescent axe, which I like for a variety of reasons. It's kind of a short weapon, and it has a halberd moveset. I think technically it is a halberd, but it does have the axe warframes for the weapon art, which is kind of interesting. But it doesn't have a whole lot of range compared to some of the other weapons in the suit. But I like it. I didn't use it, but I like it. And then, of course, the crossbow you saw me use to a decent extent. I have the twinked out collection of bolts, as you can see, explosive bolts and lightning bolts. But my ring setup isn't too impressive. I typically won't really change these here unless I need to swap something for a cat ring, and on a rare occasion a hornet ring, although I've got to be careful since my weight load, as you can see, is usually right around 69.8% if I've got the flame burst, so I've got to be careful. If I swap a ring out and the fly, I could put myself in a fat rolling situation, so I typically am careful how I do it. But obscuring ring, untrue dark ring, slumbering ring, I like to be quiet. I said it earlier in the video, but I'll say it again, you'd be surprised just how well you'll perform in an area like this that's very, very busy. It's very, very populated, not just by the scope of the level, I also mean just by all the little things that the player will come across. There's a lot of movement, especially in the graveyard area, and it's very, very easy to get lost in the riffraff, and I've had players run past me quite often. In fact, if I don't reveal myself, it's almost a guarantee that I will have a whole questing party bypass me within inches without even knowing. Unless they've seen me before, I usually have that that first impression advantage. If they haven't engaged me yet or seen me, they won't know what to look for, and I'll usually be able to get the ambush or the drop on them out of the starting gate. Once they've seen me, though, and I run off, it's a little bit harder to pull off. But yeah, that definitely goes a long way, being able to open any kind of encounter with a sneak attack. And I have that stealth on my side, so it goes a long way with this build, especially as a observant invader. You'll notice I've got the Dark Hand here. I don't think I equipped it at all in the video. I'll review the footage, of course, and confirm that, but I do on occasion get lucky with breaking this out. It's usually on a lone host. If I'm playing with my food, I'll maybe bully them a little bit with the suck. But what's interesting about the Dark Hand is that, as you can see, my FP meter is actually completely wiped out. But when you get the Dark Hand this low, I don't think it consumes anything. Actually, I don't know if it consumes anything at all. Let me do a quick test. I never really paid attention to this. Can you use it indefinitely? You can see how often I use the Dark Hand. Yeah, okay, so that's interesting. It does use the FP bar, but when you run out of FP, maybe it just does less damage. I don't know. I don't know how that works. But I don't recommend doing this unless you're planning to absorb oncoming magic, which I think it has decent defenses on. Let me see. Yeah, it's pretty much across the board there for defenses if you're absorbing incoming spells. Never break this out to reject oncoming physical damage. You will get guard broke, and it'll be quite ugly. But the Great Sword Rapier combo I favor. I don't think I deviated too much in the clips that I put in the video. On occasion I might have swapped out something else, but this is pretty much my go-to right now until I decide to respec him again. So yeah, I really have to check to see how far this guy is in terms of the game progress. I know I have twinked out Estus, as you can see, 15 at plus 10, so I have that on my side. Is probably the most twinked out aspect of this character, if I'm being really honest with you, since I don't believe any of the weapons I'm apt to use are really considered late game. All of these you can acquire by this point of the game, no further, with maybe the rare exception of the Follower Saber. No, I guess if you're at Cathedral, you're at Arandiel. So like, yeah, I guess my outfit right here is pretty good for this part of the game. So it's really just the fact that everything's infused. The whip I never really get to use unless well, I can't remember the last time I used it, honestly. But the whip's good. Always have a whip. Same way you should always have a bow or a crossbow. I have a bow. I used this mainly when I was respec'd into a dex build, but the crossbow is a pretty good alternative when you're at raw. Never not have one of these, okay? And of course the sorcerer's staff I have, because my character is a assassin, so at the default stats I will be able to use pretty low tier spells, so I figured magic weapon would be good to have on deck for a rare moment when I needed some kind of extra buff and I happened to have the FP and I was out of resins, but I'll be honest, I have not had to rely on it under any circumstance, but it's good to know that's there. And that's pretty much it. You know, I've got my daggers, my throwing knives, my bombs, better bombs. Lightning urns are a more recent addition. I don't have a lot of faith stat to really commit to the damage there, but that's really for when people are in the water, down in the lower part of the level. That comes in handy. Undead charms, dual charms. I don't see dual charms used enough in invasions. Everyone's got undead hunter charms, but yeah, dual charms are good too. Don't sleep on them. Dark resin, really just for the PvP, since at any point of the game, it's always going to be the one damage resistance that everyone's crap with. So that's what it's really there for. But I do bust out the gold bundles, especially in the flooded areas of the level by the giants. It comes into some use, especially if people are not too keen on the fact that you can electrify the water. There's a lot of people that still don't realize that. And then, of course, the Carthus Rouge from my Flame Burge. And this is especially nasty when you're in the graveyard area with all the maggot men, since a lot of players will be dealing with that noise, and you basically keep adding to the proc threat that they'll be accruing when dealing with the maggot men. And it's very, very effective. On that score, I'd also recommend the Lightning Urns for that situation. If you've got a player that's got the maggots on them, they may not be in a position to use a red moss or torch themselves to douse the maggots. If you hit them with a firebomb, and I know a lot of invaders have a go-to setup with firebombs and black firebombs, you'll actually cure them of the maggots if you actually attack a player with fire. So yeah, you'll cause damage, but you'll remove the proc on them, which, depending on the situation, may be a bad idea, especially if they've got friends. That proc is guaranteed pressure, so my advice is get an alternative durable, maybe a knife, dagger, kukri, spell, not pyromancy, but like sorcery or magic, and these. Even if you don't have the stats for the faith, they still do a nice amount of damage low level, and they will not remove the maggots. So that's kind of a big deal. What else do I have? That's pretty much it. That's everything I've got. So again, thanks, and I'll see you next time.